Hey, and welcome to the user guide for Pulp System. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get the most out of this pack. So the first thing you're going to notice is that the images in the texture pack are all kind of weird because they're like these gray squares, and that's because they're designed not to disrupt the value and contrast structure of your painting too much. I'll show you what I mean. Here's a piece of artwork that I have, and the first way you could use this texture pack is by straight up just dragging and dropping your image, the PNG, onto the canvas like so. And I can resize it a little bit, and you can see if I change the blending mode to something like linear light, there's going to be very minimal changes in the brightness and contrast and saturation of your painting. And that's we want to keep it that way because all this is just adding some texture and realism and depth to your artwork. Now, I generally find that linear light works the best for me. But if you find that this is too strong, you could always change the fill or opacity down to about half. And you can see it's not that strong. Or you could change the blending mode to something like an overlay or a soft light, in which case you can see it's a lot more gentle. So that's the first way of using this texture pack. But you can also, in Photoshop, import the pattern preset that's included in the pack. Now to do that, you're going to go to Window here and then look for patterns. You might have it open already, but in any case, you can always click here and open that tab group. You're going to go to the menu here and click Import Patterns and look for the .pat file that's included in the pack. So once I hit that, you're going to see this group here, and inside this group, there's going to be a list of all the textures included in the pack. It's really simple. Now, all I have to do is just click on any of these, and it will give me a pattern layer. And I can just tab through all of these just to show you what that looks like. So it's a really, really quick way of working. And once again, I can change that blending mode to linear light. And you can see these textures being applied to my painting underneath. So for some of these textures, if you feel like the scale is a bit too big and it's too zoomed in, you can double click on this square right here and change the scale to something that suits you. I'm going to change it 50%. You can see that scale matches up a little bit better. You can also move it around. So with the move tool, or by pressing V, I can move this layer around infinitely until I see something that I like this positioning that I like. And also you could use the, go back to this menu and change the angle here in case you want to adjust the rotation. So with some of these textures, you'll notice that it doesn't really always work. This brightness sometimes doesn't match up. And that's just because of the nature of some of these textures. So for example, this one here, it's a little bit too light. And what you can do is create a levels adjustment by going down here to clicking an adjustment layer and then adding something like a levels and just messing around with this slider here until it sort of fits our initial brightness. So something like that. This is actually better. And I can also just adjust the fill here so that it's not so aggressive and it doesn't change my brightness too much. So now I'm in Clip Studio Paint, and the way to do this is pretty much the same, where you can just drag and drop the image onto your canvas and then change it to linear light. And you can see that in Clip Studio Paint, because of the way blending modes work, it's a little different. So there is some discrepancy in your value structures, even though if you change it to certain blending modes like overlay, it's not so bad. But the same fixture can be applied like in Photoshop, where I have to make an adjustment layer. In Clip Studio Paint, we call it the correction layer, and then use something like a level correction again. And I'm going to clip this to just the texture so it doesn't affect the painting below it. And now I'm going to adjust it to match the brightness and value of my painting. So now you can see that the difference in the value is pretty much the same, other than the actual texture itself. So that's how I would manually do it. And if you wanted to, you could just manually drag and drop and tile this by hand. But in Clip Studio Paint, there's a better way to set this up. And Clip Studio Paint doesn't have an easy way of importing like a pattern file like you would in Photoshop. So you would have to do this manually. I'm going to show you how to do this right now. You're only going to have to do this once, so it's a little bit of work, but once you got it set up, life will be a lot easier. And that's by converting all the image textures into Clip Studio Paint's materials. Now to do that, we're going to first have to open a window here and go to Material. Any of these will suffice, so I'll just click on this and it should open up a palette that looks like that. Now you're going to have to make a new folder by right-clicking, and we'll just call it Pulp System. And now what we have to do is bring in our image texture into a separate folder here, so not onto our canvas. And then just click Edit here, and then go to Register Material, hit Image, and then hit Tiling because we want it to infinitely tile. And then browse, go to our Pulp System folder here, and then click OK. Now you should see that our image has been converted into a texture, and you just have to do this for basically every image in the pack. So I'll open the brown card here, and then go to Edit once again, go to Register Material, Image, and then hit Tiling once again, go to Pulp System, hit OK, and there it is. So I'm going to jump back into the artwork, and once you have all the images registered as materials, I'm just going to click on this one here. You go to any of these and just drag and drop them into the artwork, and you can see that's going to be tiled infinitely, and you can always scale it up and down like that. And once again, hit Overlay or Soft Light to change the blending mode, and you will have the texture applied on top of your artwork. So that's what it looks like. It's very pretty. So unfortunately in Procreate there isn't a function like Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop for automatically tiling patterns. So you're gonna have to manually do this every time. Luckily it's pretty simple. You just import the texture like you would any other photo, and then duplicating it and then shifting it into place. You'll see that the seams between the two images are literally impossible to spot. And then merging the two layers and then adjusting the blending mode like you would in the previous programs. So that's it. This is how to use the Pulp System textures. I hope you have a great time with them. Have fun.